What would you say if a cop asked whether you smoke weed while you're carrying your gun right now? In some places, some officers can use cannabis off-duty under state rules, but you can still get hit under federal gun law for admitting you use it. That is the insane gap almost nobody sees until flashing lights are already in their mirror. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could stop one stupid answer from turning into a gun case. And smash like before you forget this, because your memory gets real bad when a cop starts asking calm little questions. You're about to learn the exact phrase that keeps you from confessing your way into a federal problem, the question that tells you whether this stop is casual or serious, the sentence that shuts down "mind if I look around," and the final line you use when the whole thing starts moving toward charges. Let me show you exactly why this topic matters so much. A lot of people think weed is legal now, so the danger is gone. It is not gone, not even close. In some states, some police officers have been allowed off-duty cannabis use under local or state rules. But federal law still treats marijuana as illegal, and federal gun law still treats unlawful drug use as a major problem if you own or buy firearms. So when a cop asks a simple question like, "Do you smoke?" they may not be making conversation. They may be opening a door that leads straight to your rights, your gun, and your future. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the damage usually starts with one friendly answer. Now think about how these stops actually happen. The officer does not walk up and say, "Today I would like to explore the conflict between state cannabis law and federal firearm law." No chance. They ask soft questions. "Any weed in the car? You got a med card? You smoke sometimes? That your gun?" And because the question sounds small, people answer like it is small. That is the trap. Most people have no idea how dangerous that mix can be. If you use weed and own guns, or even if the officer thinks you do, your words can become the whole case. Here's the reality. You do not need to prove innocence on the roadside. You do not need to explain the politics. You do not need to debate how unfair it is that one set of rules hits you while another set protects somebody else. You need to stop talking in the wrong places and start using the right lines. That is how you protect yourself when the law is messy, unfair, and changing fast. So the first tactic is simple, and it may save you more than any other line in this whole video. If the officer asks whether you use weed, had an edible, smoked last night, or have a card, here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I do not answer questions about marijuana or personal use." Word for word, memorize that line. This works because the danger is not only what officers find, the danger is what you hand them with your own mouth. If you admit current use, occasional use, medical use, or just once in a while, you may be giving them the exact statement they need to connect you to a federal firearms issue. Now, keep it simple. Federal gun law has long treated unlawful drug users as prohibited people for gun possession and purchases. Marijuana is still illegal under federal law, even if your state says otherwise. That means your roadside honesty can become your legal headache. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. A lot of people think a medical card protects them. It often does not. In Wilson v. Lynch, a federal court backed the idea that a gun seller could deny a firearm sale based on a medical marijuana card because the government treated that as strong evidence of use, plain English. Your state card can still wave a red flag in the federal gun world. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Yeah, but only sometimes, and it's legal here." Then that sentence becomes evidence. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not answer questions about marijuana or personal use." Then the officer does not get a free confession. And notice what you are not saying. You are not lying. You are not saying no if the truth is yes. You are refusing to answer. That difference matters. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it keeps you from walking straight into a statement that is hard to undo later. You also are not being rude. You can say it calmly. You can say it once, then you stop filling the silence with nervous jokes. That silence feels awkward, but awkward is better than criminal exposure. A lot of people think being cooperative means answering every question. It does not. Cooperation with lawful commands is one thing, volunteering in missions is another. If the officer has a legal basis to take action, they will do it. Your job is not to help build the file. Your job is to stop handing them bricks. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings in the big picture, because your rights mean very little if you waive them by trying to sound nice. And if you are thinking, "But won't refusing make me look guilty?" Maybe not. But looking a little stiff is still way better than creating a clean statement about drug use while a gun is in the car. Former police officers have confirmed this works because once you refuse to answer, the stop has less free material to grow from. Watch what happens when someone uses this line right away. The officer loses the easiest path, which is getting you to admit the exact thing they needed to hear. This is 100% legal, and it may be the best sentence you ever use if your gun rights and cannabis ever collide in one bad moment. Think you could stay that calm during a real stop? Let me know in the comments, because this first tactic sounds easy until the question comes from behind a badge and a flashlight. Now, tactic 2 is what you say when the officer keeps leaning into the conversation and trying to hold you there. You look at the officer and say this: am I being detained or am I free to leave? Those exact words. This question matters because weed and gun questions often start after the original reason for the stop should have already been handled. Maybe it was a brake light. Maybe it was speeding. Maybe it was a lane issue. Then suddenly the officer is not talking about traffic anymore. They are circling around smell, ownership, past use, or whether you have anything that can hurt them in the car. Here's the reality. The longer the stop floats around without a clear answer, the more chances you give yourself to make a mistake. If you do not know whether you are free to go, you may keep chatting like this is optional. That is how people slide from a ticket into an investigation without even noticing the line. Your question forces clarity. If the officer says you are free to leave, then you leave calmly. If the officer says you are being detained, then you know this is not a friendly roadside chat anymore. This matters because courts have said police cannot stretch a regular stop forever just to chase unrelated suspicions without the right legal reason. Rodriguez v. United States made that point in plain English. Police cannot keep you there longer than needed just because they want to go fishing. Your question helps mark that moment. It tells the officer you understand there is a line between a normal stop and a criminal investigation. Bad way. Most drivers say, I'm just trying to help. What do you want to know? Then the stop grows and the questions multiply. Good way. Smart drivers say, am I being detained or am I free to leave? Then the officer has to stop hiding in the gray area. Now be smart with your tone. You are not challenging the officer to a duel. You are not acting like a courtroom hero. You are asking a calm question. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when a stop starts drifting away from the traffic reason and into a gun plus weed investigation. If they say you are detained, fine. At least now you know exactly where you stand. If they say you are free to go, go. Do not stay around and keep explaining your life story. And this line matters even more because cannabis law is a mess. Your state law, local policy, federal law, and department policy may all point in different directions. That confusion helps police, not you, so stop trying to sort all of that out in real time on the side of the road. Ask the status question, get the answer, then act from there. Let me show you exactly what this does to the officer's options. It takes the stop out of the fog. The officer now has to either release you or own the detention. That is powerful because clear facts are always better than vague pressure. Also, if you are a passenger, this line can be even more important. A passenger often starts talking because they think silence looks shady, wrong move. If the officer has shifted focus onto you because of weed questions, gun questions, or both, you need to know whether you are actually stuck there, not guessing, knowing. Watch what happens when a person asks this line early. The whole stop gets sharper. That sharpness protects you. This is 100% legal too, and it keeps you from living in the dangerous middle where people talk way too much. Now, tactic 3 is the wall. When the officer asks to search the car, your bag, your case, or your phone, you use this exact line. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize it. This is the moment where people often blow everything because they think they can cooperate their way out. They cannot. If the officer already suspects weed use and there is a gun anywhere in the picture, a consent search can turn a shaky situation into a full disaster in seconds. Listen closely because this is critical. Consent is a shortcut. Police love shortcuts. If you say yes, you may be giving up a fight you could have had later. Now, refusing consent does not mean the search magically ends. If the officer claims another legal basis, they may search anyway, but your refusal still matters. It makes the record clear. You did not invite it. You did not bless it. You did not help it. Bad way. Most drivers say, go ahead, I've got nothing to hide. Then the officer gets a free path into the car and the whole stop changes. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then the officer has to rely on law, not your fear. This matters even more in a weed plus gun stop because police know the combo sounds dangerous to judges and juries. The officer finds a little cannabis product, then finds a firearm, then your earlier statement about just using sometimes starts getting tied together. That is why your refusal is so important. It does not erase risk, but it stops you from adding to it. Former police officers have confirmed this works because consent is one of the easiest ways officers expand a stop fast. And keep the line clean, no speech about freedom, no long rant about hypocrisy, no shouting about how some cops can use weed off duty while you get punished. You may be right about the hypocrisy, but the roadside is not where you fix it. The roadside is where you prevent yourself from becoming the example. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the people who talk the most about fairness usually give away the most in the first 5 minutes. The people who do best use short lines, calm voices, and almost no extra words. There is another reason this line matters. Once an officer feels permission, they stop asking and start moving. That shift is fast. 1 second, you are in a conversation. The next second, hands are in your center console, bags are open, and questions are coming harder. Watch what happens when someone says yes because they want to look innocent. The stop turns physical, immediate, and much harder to control. Your refusal slows that down and protects your position later if the search becomes a legal issue. If you've made it this far, you're serious about protecting your rights. Show me by hitting that like button, because the final tactic is the one that saves you when the officer thinks they already caught you in a contradiction. Now, tactic 4 is what you use when the officer keeps pushing after the weed questions, after the gun questions, or after something gets found. You look at the officer and say this: "I choose to remain silent, and I want a lawyer." Those exact words. Then you actually stop talking. This is where so many people fail because they think one last explanation will clean it up. It usually makes it worse. Here's the reality. Once a gun is in the mix, every statement matters more. If you say the gun is yours, then back up and say it is your cousin's. That is a problem. If you say you never smoke, but they think they smell it, that becomes another fight. If you say you use only legal products, then later admit you had flour in the trunk, you just built your own contradiction. Silence is not weakness here. Silence is damage control. Miranda is the name people know, but the plain English rule is simpler. You do not have to keep answering questions that can bury you. And once you ask for a lawyer, the smart move is to actually wait for one. Not maybe, not after one more little answer, after none. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it is clear, respectful, and powerful. It tells the officer the free interview is over. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Let me explain, the weed is legal here and the gun is registered." Then they keep talking and the story gets messier. Good way. Smart drivers say, "I choose to remain silent and I want a lawyer." Then the officer stops getting new evidence from your mouth. Now, this part matters a lot because the law on marijuana and gun rights is not frozen. It is moving. Courts are fighting over it. After Bruin, which changed how courts look at gun restrictions, some judges started questioning older rules. In United States v. Daniels, one federal appeals court said the government could not apply the drug user gun ban that broadly in that case, plain English. The fight is active, and the law is not as settled as people think. But that does not save you on the roadside. You do not win that argument next to your car door. Your lawyer fights that later. Your job right now is to stop making the future case worse. So if you feel the stop sliding into that zone, stop trying to be your own lawyer, ask for your real one. Watch what happens when somebody keeps talking because they want to sound reasonable. They end up locking in facts before they even know what the government can prove. Silence keeps those doors closed. It gives your side room to work later. And that is the whole point. Let's put the legal part together so this does not feel random. Wilson v. Lynch showed that even state legal marijuana status can still wreck a gun purchase under federal rules, plain English. Your state permission does not magically beat federal gun law. Rodriguez v. United States said police cannot drag a stop out longer than needed without the right reason, plain English. They do not get endless time to poke around just because they are curious, and United States v. Daniels showed that at least some courts now question how far the federal marijuana gun ban can reach after Bruin, plain English. The law is being challenged, but it is not safely gone. That is why your tactics matter so much. Do not admit use, ask if you are detained or free to leave. Refuse consent to searches, ask for a lawyer and stop talking. These lines protect you while the bigger legal war keeps changing above your head. Now picture the real stop. You are driving home, there is a lawful firearm in the car, maybe locked, maybe carried under your state rules. The officer says they smell weed, or maybe they just ask casually if you smoke. Wrong way first. You laugh and say, "Only sometimes, but it's legal here." Bad start. Then they ask if there is a gun in the car. You say yes. Then they ask where it is. You tell them. Then they ask if they can take a quick look around. You say sure because you think honesty helps. Now the stop is fully open. Your own statement about weed use is on the record. Your gun is now tied to that statement, and whatever gets found next may pile on fast. Now the right way. The officer asks if you use weed. You say, "Officer, I do not answer questions about marijuana or personal use." Calm voice, no extra story. Then the officer keeps digging, and the stop starts stretching. You ask, "Am I being detained, or am I free to leave?" If the officer says you are detained and asks to search, you say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." If the pressure keeps rising, or they start trying to pin statements on you, you say, "I choose to remain silent, and I want a lawyer." That is it. No debate about politics. No speech about how unfair it is. No trying to educate the officer about conflicting laws. You stay controlled while they do their job, and your future lawyer does theirs. That right way version does not promise magic. It does not promise you instantly drive away. But it does stop the single biggest mistake people make, which is helping the case grow with their own words. And when the law is this weird, when some officers may be protected by local cannabis rules while you still face federal gun trouble, your words matter even more than usual. Next video, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed from your car. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that one excuse turns simple stops into full-blown searches every single day. So here is your quick recap. First, if an officer asks about weed use, say, "Officer, I do not answer questions about marijuana or personal use." Second, if the stop starts drifting, ask, "Am I being detained or am I free to leave?" Third, if they ask to search, say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Fourth, if the stop gets serious, say, "I choose to remain silent and I want a lawyer." You do not need a perfect speech. You need 4 short lines and the discipline to actually use them. Hit subscribe so you catch that next video on the smell of weed trick. Smash that like button if this just saved you from a future roadside mistake. And drop a comment telling me which phrase shocked you most. Stay safe out there.